Hello, and welcome to episode 1, interview 1 of Happiness from Within. I'm so excited that you're here to join me. I am your host, Jeanette Prado. In today's episode, I will be interviewing Katherina Sherman, a young and ambitious hustler with a wide range of pursuits. You can say she's a jack of all trades, from being a high fashion runway model, a singer and performer, documenting her journey through YouTube and sharing her experience as the host of her own podcast. She uses her social media influence to positively impact others, to chase after their dreams as she chases hers. Fashion is one of her biggest passions, but helping others find their purpose in life is what she calls her reason for being. It was such a pleasure to sit down with this amazing young woman. We really dug deep into her journey of where she started as a child all the way till now. She is a prime example of a young woman that never gives up. I really think you're going to get so much value. So sit back, relax, grab a cup of coffee or tea, and I'll catch you in the interview. Hello, welcome. Katherina Sherman, thank you so much for being my first interviewee on Happiness from Within. How are you today?
I'm wonderful. Thank you. I'm so thrilled and so excited. Thank you for inviting me as your first guest. I am beyond excited to be here and to talk with you today. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Oh, absolutely. It's just been so amazing getting to know you, and it's going to be exciting to share your story. You've created something very epic for yourself at such a young age. And so let's go ahead and dive in. Let's start with obviously people know your name, but go ahead and introduce yourself, your age, and where you're from.
I'm Katherina Sherman. I am 20 years old, and I currently live in Las Vegas, but originally born and raised in Illinois.
Okay, wonderful. And what is it that got you into modeling? Like, what your passion and what brought your happiness from within for that? Like, talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So I started modeling when I was about like 7 years old, is when I kind of got into it. It kind of derived from like pageantry, doing pageants at a young age. And then I was always super into high fashion and clothing and, seeing these models like on TV. And I was like, I really want to do that, when I grow up. And it's funny because I actually have classmates from when I was in like elementary school that messaged me today, and they're like, wow, you really did what you said you were going to do. Like, I remember when we were like sitting in class and you told me you were going to be a model someday, and like now seeing you actually are one. So it's always nice to like hear those things because you get to actually see how you talked these things and like worked these things into existence. But I started when I was younger. I took a break just because there's lots of things out there that try to sell you on that they can make you a star, that they can make you a this and a that and whatever, and they ended up not being like legit. So I kind of just took some time to really find me and like find what I really wanted, and then I started back again when I was 16 years old and decided I really want to take this seriously. So without an agency, without being signed to literally anybody, I was just looking up every single audition I could possibly find, every single casting I could go to.
Wow.
And that's really how I got my foot in the door and was just trying to network as much as I possibly could and actually book jobs without any help.
Wow. That's amazing. You had also mentioned when we had spoken a few weeks ago that you were doing personal development. Can you talk a little bit about that and how you were on this journey of really trying to find yourself? And you had mentioned a book. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So when I was younger, I was raised by a single mom, growing up, and
Wow.
she always had these books laying around, and I'm like, why do we have so many books? Like, why is she always getting new books? And I'd always kind of tease her, like make fun of her in a way, and I was like, Mom, these books are not going to help you be a millionaire. They're not going to help you, whatever. I don't know why you have them. And so I just like I could not understand why we had like these like books laying around. So finally I just decided to pick one up, and I'm like, I'm going to read about this. And it was almost kind of my way of like proving her wrong in a sense. I was like, I'm just gonna pick up one of these, I'm gonna read it, and then I'm gonna tell her, like how this is all like crazy or like whatever. So I picked one up, and it was Awaken the Giant Within by Tony Robbins.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And yeah, little did I know that, I mean, being that young, I was around maybe like 14, 13, 14, 15. And being that young, I didn't realize like that book would change my mindset and my perspective and everything completely. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Obviously, there were certain things that being that young, I didn't fully grasp and understand as well as I do now. But there were a lot of things that definitely resonated with me and kind of like changed my mind that were like planting seeds there. And I was like, oh,
What?
I'm sorry. Did you?
No, go ahead. Go ahead. I was just going to say,
Yeah.
what was it that really, like, if you were to share, like, three takeaways, three golden nuggets that really resonated with you in that book that you could share with the audience that just really helped you to make that mindset shift, what would be those three things that really resonated in your heart to make that
Yeah,
change
I
in your
think it
life?
was even just like reading about Tony Robbins and how he first started. He was just a janitor, you know what I mean?
Yeah, isn't that
And like he
crazy?
really, yeah. So like listen or like reading on his story and then seeing how many lives he's changed, and then also relating to the people that he talked about that had these problems and how they went from like this crazy messed up past to like an amazing and life changing of a future. And so I really was like, I'm like, wow, like this is something that is possible for me. If it's possible for these people, it's certainly possible for me. So I developed this, like, I started learning about a little bit, a little bit about like self-awareness. And
Mm,
so really like understanding my truth and
wow.
using that to like my advantage.
Wow. Can you dive a little bit deeper what you mean about finding your truth? Maybe there's a young woman out there that wants to become a model and she's like, I don't know what books to read. Like what does finding your truth, what does that mean for you? Like,
For me, finding my truth means like no matter the background you come from and the circumstances that you've dealt with in life, that like you are significant no matter where you're planted. Like you have a purpose, you have everything you need to possibly thrive in the direction that you want to go in. It's really all just dependent upon you, if you're going to do it, if you're going to make it happen, or if you're not, really, because it all falls on you at the end of the day. And so living my truth is not really like fabricating anything that I've been dealt with in my life, like not really covering up my struggles, but embracing them and really sharing them and using them to like my abilities instead of like shying away from them and trying to make it seem like everything is perfect because it's so unrealistic. And I feel like that's how many people want to represent their lives nowadays. Like we
yeah.
try to put up these fronts and we try to like make it seem like everything is like crystal clear and like pretty on the outside, but no one really knows what's going on deeper within. So it's really just like using the cards you're dealt with and using them in a way to make you win regardless.
Wow. And what would you tell us, maybe there's a 7-year-old girl right now listening to this podcast and and she's asking as a 7-year-old, what is one step that I can take today to find my truth? What would you say to that little girl?
Whatever dream that you have in your heart right now, whether it's like this crazy out of this world type of idea in your mind and in your heart, and you can't go a day without like not thinking about it, and it resonates so much in your heart that like you're like, I have to do this, I got to do this, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I want to do it. As long as you have that passion there, there's always going to be a way that you can find yourself doing it. And there will be many of like doubters and people along the way as you grow up that make your dreams seem so small and so insignificant and make them seem too out of this world to achieve. But as long as you listen to yourself and you listen to the voice that's within you, it's always going to guide you where you're meant to be.
Wow, that is really deep. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, of
Did you
course.
along through your epic journey, like did you ever have people doubt you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, even today, I have so many doubters. You know what I mean? Like, I guess you could so many people like hating as well. There's haters, there's doubters, there's people that they watch you, like they'll watch your every move just to see if you'll fail, just to see if you won't make it, or just to see like that, oh look, see, they didn't do what I said they were gonna do or not. You know what I mean? There's always people that are ready to critique you and judge you and knock you, no matter what direction you're going into.
And what would
And
go ahead, I'm sorry.
no, and it's so easy to feel the pressure, you know what I mean? To
Mm,
feel the heavy burden of like, oh my gosh, like not only do I want to like not disappoint myself, but then having this extra pressure of like these people that just seem like they're ready for me to throw in the towel at any second, and it'll give them more of a sense of relief, and it'll just make me feel so down about everything, you know?
mm.
So it's easy to feel drained and drowned because of it. But the real strength is actually tuning it out and really just believing in yourself when no one else does.
Wow. 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 That's deep. And what to add to that, the book that you read, Awaken the Giant from Within, and through your experiences that you've had in life, what would you say to the person listening to this podcast that maybe they have somebody right now, like today they had somebody that criticized them and it just really brought them down, and let's say they're feeling depressed and they just like don't know like in this moment how to pick themselves up. Like what would you say to that person right now?
Everyone's always going to have an opinion about something. You know what I
Right.
mean? It would be impossible if we all agreed on everything and if we all loved the same things. Everyone has such a different perspective and a different view, and your dreams are only meant for you to
Mm.
accomplish and achieve. They're not meant for everybody, and that's why you have them and that's why other people don't, you know? And so we just have to really understand that people will be people at the end of the day, and no one's
Mm.
perfect in that sense, and we all carry our own insecurities. And sometimes when people criticize you or try to knock you down, it's because they have their own limitations in their mind, and because they're scared of ever doing what you would be doing, they feel the need to prohibit you from doing so. So when you're in a situation like that, the only way to get out is to really choose to. There's always a decision, right? In life, you
Mm.
can always choose to listen, or you
Absolutely.
can choose to go in a different direction than where everyone else is going. And you have to be real with yourself and say, am I going to regret taking this person's advice later on and letting them talk me out of my dreams? Or am I going to be happy later that whether it works out or not, I tried? Like, I did my best to actually full force chase after what I wanted to do, and I didn't let anybody stop me, you know?
Wow.
And the thing about it is, like, pain is so temporary, and the things that people say, we'll remember them for a little bit, but the more we keep going, it gets easier to deal with. So what people are saying now is not what they're always going to be saying forever. So
Wow.
you have to really prove to yourself and to other people that you got it more than they think you got it. And you have to convince yourself of that too. I feel like obviously like you can't win everybody over, but if anybody, you have to win yourself over, because that's the only way it's going to work.
Wow, that's amazing. One of my coaches, and it comes from also Tony Robbins, use your pain as your greatest power.
Yes.
So that's really deep what you were sharing. Wow, that's amazing. And so just moving forward, you actually this is actually a good segue. So you had in your amazing podcast, you had shared about one of your experiences when you were singing, and trying to remember exactly, but basically you had like an obstacle. It was like something was shifted last minute. Like, can you talk a little bit about that and how
Yeah.
I think that goes kind of like what we're talking about. I think it's like a really
Right.
powerful experience that you had, if you can touch on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had a big show I was preparing for earlier this year, and it would set a really big bar for me, to
Mm,
obviously show people like, whoa, this is her, this is how far she's come. And obviously people of importance would be there. And so I had a lot of pressure on my shoulders. And this was something that like I was thrilled to have this opportunity in front of me, like this once in a lifetime opportunity to really make it and show like everything that I got. And I was just hit with these like unexpected obstacles and circumstances that like I was just like, why now? Like, of all times, like, why did it have to be right now? You know what I mean? And I got sick like for 2 weeks
Wow.
prior to like the actual show. I was still sick while I performed, and that was frustrating. I was used to like when I got a cold, only a couple of days, I could knock it out and then it'd be fine again. This just would not shake for some reason. I did everything I possibly could
Wow.
and could not get it out. So I kind of just accepted it like I'm going to have to do it while being sick. And on top of that, I had, criticism from people within the show as well, that were just trying to
Wow.
spread rumors about me and saying things that, obviously that I wasn't good and that, she's going to be an embarrassment on stage and like, why would they choose her to do this? And, that really was like not a fun situation to be in because it's like
Mm.
I already have so much to prove because I have like this negativity that's kind of like being forced in my direction. And
Yeah.
at the same time, I'm dealing with this negativity because I'm sick and I'm not in the best condition to actually perform at my best. So I was like, what am I going to do? Like, I was getting super emotional. Obviously, my emotions were taking over,
Mm.
and I just felt I felt drained. I felt so exhausted. I was like, I almost like for a second I was thinking like, well, maybe if they just don't want me, then maybe I just shouldn't do it. And then I was thinking to myself, I'm like, well, what is that gonna do? Like if I listen to these people, like, are they gonna get a satisfaction? And what does that give me? It gives me nothing. It lets
Yeah.
them win. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like I'm not there for them. I'm there to share like my gifts and my talents and my abilities. And
Absolutely.
it might not be the way that I had envisioned, but I'm gonna do
Mm.
it anyways. And I'm just gonna give it my best, and like that's just how it's gonna have to be. Like
Wow.
there's no more turning back now. It's too late. I committed myself to this, and so I have to do it. And so I really just had to suck it up, basically, and kind of like get over the fact that there was all of these different things that were supposed to like keep me from doing the thing that I was meant to do, but I
Wow.
did it anyways, and it ended up turning out beyond amazing. Like
Wow.
I had such positive feedback from so many people that were like chasing me down and saying, "Oh my gosh, you did such a great job." But like obviously certain people that had said things about me were suddenly quiet, and they, didn't have very much to say afterwards. And most people didn't even like, no one really knew I was sick either. Like they were like, "Whoa,
Wow.
you're performing and you're sick, we can't tell." You know what I mean? So it's like
Wow.
a lot of the times we don't realize the extra pressure we put on ourselves is from ourselves. You know what I mean? And we kind of like take the situation we're already dealing with and kind of make it 10 times more than it's necessary, which is normal because, as humans, we tend to overcomplicate and oversimplify things that we shouldn't, but we do. But however, everything that was trying to keep me from doing the thing that I was supposed to do didn't. I obviously overcame it, and I live
Wow.
to tell a tale now, so I was happy that I could share that. And it was such a meaningful experience for me just because it felt like a very uphill battle and a huge challenge for me. And I got through it because I made the decision to, you know?
Wow. That's incredible. And what is one thing you could share as far as like what was the mindset shift for you in that moment when you were having all these things hitting you? Like
Mm-hmm.
what made you have that like shift, that you could share with, maybe that person that's struggling right now? Like but what is one thing you could share, or two things that your mindset, like
Yeah.
what was that giant from within that came out of you?
Yeah. I was thinking to myself, like, who would this make me be if I just walk away from all of this right now and I basically say, "Hey, I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm done." If I walk away from this and I crawl back into my little cave, and I kind of just like hide under a rock and not really show myself or show my face or whatever, I'm like, that makes me a coward. You know what I mean? And obviously, I wouldn't be proud of that person. Like, I wouldn't be
Mm.
proud of myself to kind of shy away from a challenge. And challenges are always supposed to, I mean, they're not supposed to be easy, but they should also be entertaining and kind of fun to tackle at the same time. And so I was like, I always tell myself the only way to get out of something is by going through it. You know what I mean? The only way to get out of it is by going through it. And so I'm like, well, the only way to do it is you have to do it. Like there's no turning back now. There's no do-overs. There's no like, obviously we're all given this being called life, and it's not like a video game. Like when it's gone, it's not like we can just restart again. And so I was like, this is my one opportunity that I really have to do this. And so regardless of the way that I wish I want to do it, like I just have to do it now. You know what I mean?
Wow.
And so I guess the shift in my mind was like, can I walk away from this still being proud of myself if I don't do it? And the answer is no. I wouldn't have been proud of myself. I would have felt really down and obviously felt worse entirely about everything if I, didn't do it. And so I was like, I really just have to see the difference if I try versus not trying, Like I have to see what's on the other side versus just staying in my comfort zone, and nothing happens from your comfort zone. I've known that my whole life. Like obviously when you're staying in your comfort zone, there's no opportunity to grow. And so I was thinking, even if it totally bombs, even if it kind of goes sideways and doesn't really work out, like at least I did it. You know what I mean? At least like I put myself out there, and regardless of what anyone else said, I did what I committed myself to saying I would do.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
There was this podcast I was listening to. Cliff Braun was talking about how you were talking about comfort. He talks about how 95% of the world is living, in their comfort zone. They don't want to stretch their life.
Right.
So that's amazing that you picked yourself up despite however you were feeling, and you just did it.
Yeah.
And later in life when you're sharing these stories with, like when you're an older lady, like, it's going to be like a surreal moment, like,
yeah.
Would you say that's probably one of the biggest obstacles that you've overcome, something you never thought you'd get through?
I don't think it was like one of the biggest. I think that it was definitely something that I have overcome, like currently, like I guess like within this last year. It's something that I wasn't expecting that I would, obviously have to go through. But yeah, like something big that I've overcome, I guess, is like anxiety and depression. So that was like a big obstacle that I was facing for years. That really after that point, after getting over that, like I felt there's nothing more that is ever going to come in my way that I know that I can't get through.
Do you mind expanding on that a little bit? There's this statistics that talks about that I believe it's over 60 million Americans actually suffer with depression and anxiety. And I know it's a topic that people don't really want to talk about, but if you can share, how, going through your depression and anxiety, that person that's listening right now, like that's just really suffering or whatever they might be going through, like this depression and anxiety of just how like through your life, you've been able to just really pick yourself up, like especially like the youth today, there's just so many people committing suicide because they give up. But if you can expand on that, anything you would like to share of how you've overcome your depression and anxiety.
Yeah, for sure. It's obviously something that doesn't happen overnight, but it's really trying every single day to just feel better than your current state of being. And I think a lot of times these things derive from the fact that we don't feel happy with ourselves now, and that obviously we don't feel happy with ourselves in our situations and our circumstances. We feel like this is it, and like it's never going to get better from here, and we kind of let our situations get the best of us, and we kind of like let it eat us alive, and it kind of just becomes this downward spiral. And the way I really got through it was just by having faith. I am spiritual. I do believe in God. I know like not everyone does, and that's okay.
Beautiful.
But yeah, I know like not everyone shares that, the same, which is fine, as long as you have faith in something, you know.
Mm.
I was always told that, you know, the sun is always shining somewhere. You know,
Mm.
even if it's a cloudy day, the sun is always shining somewhere in the world. And when you think about it, it's hard to think about other people's situations when you're so stuck in yours.
Mm.
And you think like, my life is the worst, my this and that, you know, like I can't ever see myself getting out of this or getting better from this and whatever. And it really takes time to get to a point. I got to a point where I was so sick and tired of always being sick and tired, of
Mm.
always feeling the same way. And I'm like, there has to be something more than this. There has
Mm.
to be something more out there than just this. You know
Mm.
what I mean? And I feel like everybody has the right to always, choose their state of being if you want to be happy. And if you don't, I mean, obviously, like, some days are better than others. Some days we have our glory days, and then other days are not the best. But it's like everyone goes through that. Everyone goes through that time in their lives when they're really, really down, and then there's times when they're really, really up. So it kind of helps you appreciate those days better than others. But when you're really down in that kind of situation, I always try, especially through my podcast, to remind people that
Mm.
you're never alone. You know, I mean, you're one in a bunch of people that are feeling the same way, that don't feel like they belong, that feel an emptiness, that feel like they're not right, or like they're not where they should be in their lives, and they're not happy with everything that's going on around them. Like, you're not alone. There's so many people that are hurting and that don't know how to get out of their situations.
Mm.
But when you use your stories, and when you use your ways of, like, I guess, your own remedies of trying to heal yourself and help yourself,
Mm.
like, it does heal and help other people as well. So for me, really just learning to love myself, because that was something that I was never taught really growing up, never learned that in school. No one ever taught it to me. After really going through a bad, like, toxic relationship, and then falling into, like, this depression, and then having to figure out how to find myself
Mm.
again, and also learning how to love myself when that was something that was so foreign to me. That's really when the depression started to fade, and I started realizing that happiness is a choice, and that I create my life. You know, my
Mm.
circumstances don't dictate, how I can enjoy it. It's up to me if I want to live it the best way, like, that I know how, or if I just want to always be a victim of my circumstance. So
Wow, that's really beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
yeah,
Can you
thanks.
expand deeper about loving yourself? You know, we hear it like we have to love ourselves, and can
Yeah.
you expand on just three? It could be one or two or three things that you could share with the young man or the young woman or just anybody listening to this podcast of steps that they can take today to start loving themselves. What would be three
Yeah.
things?
One thing for sure is prioritizing your happiness, because so many times we put so many other things before ourselves, including
Mm.
other people, which is great. I mean, it's a good thing to always care about others, but it's hard to help someone else when you are not helping yourself. Because
Mm.
after all is said and done, you feel empty in the end. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if you're not whole on your own, you can't make someone else feel whole.
Yeah.
Or if you're not, if you don't love yourself enough, or, like, if you're not fulfilled by just your own love, you're
Mm.
always going to be craving more from somebody else. So it's so important to always have it start from here, and then so we can better share it out there. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And secondly, I guess another one on loving yourself is really just learning how to set boundaries, and
Mm.
not letting other people take advantage of you. And, like,
Mm.
obviously, if you have a kind heart and you're compassionate, is something that I've definitely had issues with. You always want to be giving, and you always want to help people, and sometimes it ends up leaving you empty, and then
Mm.
you don't know how to, like, you're like, I'm giving all this love and I'm giving all this kindness and everything to everybody else, but I have nothing left for me. You know what I mean? So, and I feel like none of us really get told, besides now how it's popular to be like, oh, just love yourself. And no one
Right.
really dives into the meaning of, like, well, what does it mean to love yourself?
Mm.
And loving yourself is also taking care of yourself, so that
Mm.
way you can better take care of other people around you. And you really have to sometimes be selfish to be selfless.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Thank you. So
Yeah.
I wanted to jump into to transition when you were processing, going through this process of, not giving yourself any excuses. And can you talk about how, like, through your modeling, you had talked about how you got a check from one of your modeling places to start filming, and then can you talk about like transition about the followers and how you were providing value? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so the first modeling job I ever got, I was around like 15 or 16 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't signed with an agency. I just kept applying for everything, and it was frustrating at first because, of course, like I felt almost inferior, I guess, to other people because there were always girls that were always going to be taller than me, that were always going to, have what I guess they were specifically looking for. And I just had to like kind of get over that and be like, well, this is who I am, this is what I have. I can't really change that part of me, so I kind of just have to be okay with not getting in sometimes and just pushing forward until I do get in. So it was really just that unwavering type of determination, like it's gonna happen anyways, like the more that I just keep doing it and doing it, like something is going to come through. And also how I like built like my following and stuff. I never spent any money on buying followers, on getting followers, anything like that. Even like with my YouTube channel, I started when I was 14. Took a break for a little bit and then got more serious about it later. And I didn't really know people were paying attention to me. I was doing it for the fun of it. I was being silly. I was just enjoying myself and kind of entertaining myself until I realized, oh, people are actually watching this. Okay, so and even on Facebook, like anything I was going through, I kind of would always post like these positive like messages sometimes, and I didn't realize that it impacted a lot of people. Like I would randomly get messages saying like, I really look forward to just reading your statuses every day because it makes me feel better about like my life, or like it makes me feel like like seeing you chase after your dreams makes me want to believe in achieving mine again.
Wow.
Things like that. So I realized like with social media and the power of it today, like there's amazing and incredible things that you can do with it. And so I'm like, so I want to lead by example in the sense and use my gifts, my talents and abilities to also be a blessing to somebody else.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Another thing I really loved that you were talking about when we spoke a few weeks ago is how, you were, when you were out there, not really sure what you were doing. And then people started giving you stories like this changed my life. Is you had shared about providing value, but also being consistent. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. I get messaged a lot from other like content creators and obviously people through social media that are looking to grow and expand their audience and their reach and how to like get their stuff out there. And
And they're
I
like,
always,
how did you do it, right?
yeah, how did you do it? What's the secret? Tell me what the secret is. And it's
Secret
so funny.
sauce.
I know, give me the secret sauce, or like, the Krabby Patty formula or something. And so like I honestly wish so much so that I could be like, all right, just do A, B, C and just do it like this. But I'm like, honestly, my YouTube channel has not grown as much as it has within the past 6 months because I was super committed and I was consistent. Because there was a huge gap from when I started at 14. I always took breaks in between because I had excuses I was giving myself. I was like, I don't have a good camera. I don't look as nice as other like YouTubers do with all their fancy lighting and equipment and everything. And I was like, no one's gonna want to watch me because I'm just like this random girl I don't even have a video editor, all this stuff. So I gave myself these excuses as to why I couldn't do it versus just doing it. And that's what prevented me from being where a lot of these other YouTubers are now, which, obviously it's easy to want to beat myself up for that. But right now I'm like, I can't change the past. I can only change what I'm doing now. So, and what that was just being consistent. And that's how I really gained like my first 1,000 subscribers on YouTube.
Wow.
Was just by posting videos, and like one of my videos went viral. I paid nothing for advertising. It didn't advertise it. I didn't even share it on any social media because I kind of kept my YouTube a separate thing. I'm like, if I already had people that weren't believing me and were already doubting me, I'm like, putting that stuff up there was for sure gonna make people not believe in me and doubt me. So I was like, I'm not gonna share this like on my Facebook, not gonna share this on my Instagram, anything. And it really took off, like it blew up. And then I realized, okay, I'm gonna start actually now just tying these things in with my social media because it would make sense now to do that. But really, it was just consistency. Like, there's a lot of YouTubers that we all kind of started at the same time, and they're way ahead of me now. And I mean, I could be where they're at right now, but I was the one who chose to take a break. So that falls on me, you know what I mean? Like, their consistency is why they're up there in numbers versus where I am. I still feel like I'm just beginning now.
Absolutely. But you're kicking butt. You're doing it. I mean, how many young people do you know that are, your age and have accomplished what they have, I remember one of the things that you had also talked about, you had mentioned that you didn't want your family to know what you were doing. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah.
The person out there, maybe they're in the same situation. They don't want their family to know what they're doing, and just how you were able to balance everything and still have that belief in yourself as you were, just trying to build your career and, find your happiness.
Yeah. My family, they're very, like, certain people in my family, they have certain, like, spiritual, like, religious beliefs that kind of don't agree with, like, the way that I want to live my life, I guess, as far as, like, modeling and, like, my passions and my pursuits and stuff. It's not super, like, approved of by them. And I mean, eventually over time, they, obviously warmed up to the idea. In the beginning, not so much. I was always told you need to get a real job, you need to do something real with your life. You know what I mean? Things like that.
Yeah.
So of course, hearing those things when I was younger always made me cry, always made me feel down about myself. But yeah, at first, when I first started, even like with YouTube and stuff, I didn't really tell anybody. At the same time, like, I think I was 14. I used my mom's iPad to start filming videos.
Wow.
And I was always so, like, shy, like, that maybe she would find out or that somebody else was going to find out or something. And because it was just something that I loved to do in my free time when I was younger. It was fun for me. I had a kick out of it because I was so bored and had nothing else to do. And that's kind of how I landed on YouTube. But yeah, I mean, I can understand that there's probably so many youngsters, I guess, like me, that have these crazy wild passions that are so significant now, because anything nowadays is like, like, there's so much opportunity to just do just about anything like you could possibly think of. And obviously, I mean, our relatives and our family members, they come from different generations than we do.
Right.
So they haven't always had the same opportunities, or they haven't always understood or known the kind of opportunities that we have now because it didn't exist back then. So it's a different age, it's a new time, and it's a new era, and lots of people don't kind of grasp that yet. They're still kind of stuck in an old mentality. So it really is hard to kind of convince, especially loved ones, like, what you're doing, and also trying to get them to believe in you the same way that you believe in yourself. But again, it always comes down to you. It took years. I mean, even now, like, I'm just now, like, my family is just now starting to really get what I'm doing, you know what I mean? And they're still kind of like about it, you know what I mean, sometimes. But it's okay because I love what I'm doing. I understand that they don't get it the same way I do. Like, it doesn't come as natural to them as it does to me. But you always just have to really, it's always you and yourself in life at the end of the day, you know what I mean? We love the people that we love, and sometimes they don't always approve of the things that we do, and they don't always understand the things that we do, but we have to do it anyways. And later on, maybe it'll make sense to them, maybe it won't, but as long as you're staying true to yourself no matter what.
Wow, that's wonderful. So one of the other things that you had talked about is, you feel that you, when we spoke a few weeks ago, you were saying that you have belief in yourself and that you wake up with a purpose. Can you talk about, your purpose and, like, where you're headed, maybe for that person out there that, like, doesn't feel that they have a purpose and they don't have belief in themselves. Can you expand on that?
Right. When I was younger, I was very insecure. I didn't think I
No
would be the
way.
person. No, I mean, I didn't think I would be the person that I am now. I would have
Wow.
probably been like, "You're crazy." I would have never thought I'd made a podcast. Would have never thought I would actually go somewhere with YouTube or go somewhere with modeling. All these kind of things because, especially being in school, you do have bullies. There are people that make you feel ashamed about the things that you love and are passionate about, and it kind of makes you feel like, oh, maybe it's wrong. But how I found my purpose was just by doing what I loved naturally and just like sharing that. I really wasn't expecting people to message me and tell me that, like, just by sharing what I loved and like going after it like consistently and just like being so passionate about it that I am, I would have never thought that people would like message me and say, like, because of what you're doing, I now feel like I can do that too. Or like, I now feel like I have the ability to go after the thing that I wanted, but kind of like left for so long because I didn't think that I could do it. But watching you do what you're doing makes me want to, or like, the words that you're sharing makes me feel like I'm not alone and that, like, I can really go through life in a better state of being and stuff like that. Like, that's how I feel like I wake up with purpose every day, is knowing that even one person's life has like changed, or like I made their life easier just by sharing the experiences that I've gone through, or like, sharing something with them that they feel is easier to get through their journey with. And that's the whole reason why I started my podcast, because I had so many people telling me, you need to like start a blog or like a business blog or something like that. And I was like, I don't really know. I'm more of a talker and stuff. So then I kind of started realizing podcasting was a thing, and that's how I really started to just open up and talk about my experiences and really share them with other people without realizing the actual impact that it would actually have.
Yeah, talk a little bit about your podcast. Where can people find you?
So I started on SoundCloud. Now I'm on Spotify and iTunes.
Nice.
Yeah, so I'm excited for that. Spotify just launched to get on other platforms out there that other people may be listening to. And yeah, those are the two that I'm currently on right now.
What's the name of your podcast?
The Katherina Sherman audio show. Yeah.
That's great. And what is it that you talk about? Talk a little bit about your podcast, and just, we've heard your story, but, so that way
Yeah.
people can find you and
Mm-hmm.
and get inspired
So
to hear your story.
yeah. My podcast is all about just my truth. It's super raw, it's unedited, unfiltered. There's nothing that I shy away from or that I hide. I talk about the struggles of like being raised by a single mom and kind of like not having a father figure growing up, also dealing with like depression and anxiety and those kind of things, dealing with toxic relationships, chasing after your dreams when you're obviously not in the best of a financial state of being, being looked down on upon your peers and not having acceptance from the outside. And, every single time you chase after your dreams, it just seems like there's like a closed door, all these types of things. Like any single time I learned something is where I would share it on my podcast, because I felt like if I can learn from this, if this is something that has helped me grow, it's certainly going to help somebody else in their situation as well. So I share just about everything that I've learned along the way. My podcast is all about just me wanting to grow with people, because I don't think I'm an expert. I think I'm a human being that's going through life. And as young as I am, I feel like there's so many young people that we all kind of feel the same or different, but in the same sense that we all want better futures for ourselves. We just kind of don't know how to get there. And we need more support from one another, because a lot of times, like, my generation gets put down by the other generations, and we get categorized as just these obnoxious millennials, and like, you know what I mean, that have no sense of direction and have no idea what they're doing. And so a lot of times we just need to know that like everyone kind of doesn't know what they're doing. Even the older generation really doesn't know what they're doing. Everyone's kind of just like everyone's kind of just living their life, and we're figuring it out by the mistakes we make and then getting better from it. So that's really just what my podcast is. I just want people to feel okay about themselves. I want them to know that it's okay to not have it all together, to not have everything figured out, that, you know, that they can win with their circumstances, no matter like if they come from like the best of a background or not, because I certainly haven't either. So I really just want people to know that they have such a significance in this life that we live, and to just own every last second of your life you can. I mean, as much as you can, because I mean, we only live once, and I mean, none of us make it out alive. So it's best that we just live our best lives, even through like the not so best situations and circumstances.
Wow, that's really powerful what you just said. You know, your experience reminds me of there's this Hindi film. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's called Fashion. Have you ever seen it?
No, I haven't.
So I definitely encourage you to watch it. So basically, there's this moment. This young model, she has this moment where she finds out that her best friend had just overdosed on drugs. And not to ruin the whole story, but basically what had happened was she hadn't been modeling for quite a number of years because she hit a really low point of depression.
Right.
But there was this fashion designer that really believed in her, and he says, you know, I really want you to model for my fashion show. And she's like, no, I haven't done it in so long. And basically she has this moment, like literally she's not supposed to be answering her phone, but right before she's going to go out, she picks up the phone and she finds out that her friend overdosed on drugs and died. So it was like this moment, it was either going to make her or it was going to break her. And so you'll have to watch the movie to find out what happens. But she reminds me a lot of you because, you know, through your experience that you've been sharing, you know, I mean, you're so young and beautiful, you know, and just like, but just everything that you've accomplished up to this point, you know, you just, I think you really show as a prime example of just an amazing young woman of just never giving up. So, you know, thank you for that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. You know, and just to, we're going to wrap up here soon, but if you can share, do you have like a favorite quote, or just do you have a mentor, anybody that you look up to that you would love to share? You know, it can be anyone, you know.
Someone who I guess like within the last few years I've really looked up to is obviously Gary Vee.
And yeah, can you expand on what Gary Vee has resonated for you in your life?
Yeah, Gary Vee is the reason why I got back on YouTube. He's the reason why I even started a podcast. Everything that I held myself back from, he's just a no excuse kind of person.
Yeah.
So, and I really needed that push. I really needed to hear someone just like show me a life, or like show me the results of what it's like to live a life with no excuses. And so listening to him totally changed a lot of like my limiting beliefs of what I was holding myself back with, a lot of excuses I was giving myself, and really just helped me be happier and also like get these opportunities that I didn't know would, you know, come into play later on just by acting on the things that I wanted to do.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
So if you could share,
I guess like,
oh, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, please interrupt me, whatever you got to do.
I don't know. I really don't. I have this thing where I don't like to quote other people because I feel like, why quote other people when you can quote yourself?
Quote yourself, baby. Do it.
That's just me. I don't know. That's me. But like, I have this on my Twitter, but and I've said this on my podcast as well. But I've always believed that we're not defined by the amount of followers we have, but by the amount of lives we've changed and impacted. So yeah, that's my quote by me.
No, that's so great. Just to add to what you're saying, there's this amazing young man. His name is Caleb Maddox. And he's also, I mean, he's a little bit younger than you, but, you know, he's, man, just like all the impact and everything that he's done. And he also talks about that, how like, you know, it's not about the number of followers that you have, but the impact that you're making.
Right.
And he talked about in the interview that I was listening to, in his story, he talked about how when he only just had a few followers, and how those few followers, one of those people was like Grant Cardone's like sister, and then they ended up like, you know, you just never know which way it's gonna go. So like that's amazing. I wanted to leave you with a quote and to ask you one more question, and then we'll go ahead and end. So there was a philosopher that once remarked that perhaps the only way to determine happiness or unhappiness in life is by adding up at the end of one's days all the joys and all the sorrows that one has experienced and basing one's final evaluation on whichever figure was larger. So I want to ask you to end, what does it mean for you? It can be in either one or two sentences, but what does it mean to find happiness from within? What does that mean for you?
Finding happiness from within, that's a really good question. It really means to me that anything that's happening on the exterior doesn't reflect what's going on in here. Like, because it doesn't matter really what's happening, because as long as you're fulfilled with yourself and knowing that like you are enough, and like anything in the world, like the world could be ending, but you're still at peace and you're like happy inside of yourself, that like nothing can really shift what you've built from within, if that like makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. No, that was straight from the heart. Thank you for that. So, just to end, please share where people can find you. You're on Instagram, and go ahead and repeat your the name of your podcast, and so that way people can follow you and get value from your amazing content.
Yes, so I'm on Instagram as Katherina Sherman, and then also my podcast is the Katherina Sherman Audio Show. I'm sure if you just type in my name, you'll be able to find it in the search bar as well. And then my YouTube, if you want to follow my journey on there, it's youtube.com/thekatsherman.
Perfect. Well, Katherina, I really want to thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I had a blast.
Namaste.
Talk to you all day.
This is amazing. We had some few little glitches and obstacles that we got through, but thank you so much. Thank you for all the value that you shared through your story. And I just wish you an awesome day. Thank you so much.
You as well. Thank you for having me.
Hey guys, well that's a wrap. Thank you so much for joining me in the first episode of Happiness from Within. My goal is that you're able to take at least one golden nugget away from this interview, and that it touched your heart and soul in some sort of way. You can follow Katherina Sherman on YouTube at The Cat Sherman, and you can follow her on Instagram at Katherina Sherman. The links will be below. Please make sure to subscribe and leave a comment, and I will catch you on the next interview. Have a beautiful day. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.